Welcome! Today, we're diving into the basics of fixed-term leases. If you've ever rented an apartment or a house, you've probably come across this term. But what exactly does it mean? In this video, we'll break down the definition, key features, and important considerations of fixed-term leases. Whether you're a tenant or a landlord, understanding this type of lease can help you make informed decisions and avoid surprises. Let's start by defining what a fixed-term lease is and why it's so commonly used in the rental market. A fixed-term lease is a rental agreement that lasts for a specific, predetermined period. This period is usually outlined in the contract and can range from a few months to several years, but the most common duration is 1 year. During this time, both the tenant and the landlord are bound by the terms of the lease. This means neither party can change the agreement or end it early without facing potential penalties. Fixed-term leases provide stability and predictability for both sides, making them a popular choice in the rental market. Fixed-term leases come with several key features. First, the start and end dates are clearly specified, so both parties know exactly how long the lease will last. Second, the rent amount is usually fixed for the entire term, which means tenants don't have to worry about sudden increases. Third, the responsibilities of both the tenant and landlord are outlined in detail, covering things like maintenance, repairs, and payment schedules. These features help create a sense of security and clarity for everyone involved. While fixed-term leases can technically be for any length of time, the most common duration is 12 months. Some leases might be as short as 6 months or as long as several years, depending on the needs of the tenant and landlord. Shorter leases offer more flexibility, while longer leases provide greater stability. It's important for both parties to agree on a duration that fits their plans and expectations before signing the lease. Unlike month-to-month leases, which automatically renew each month and can be ended with short notice, fixed-term leases lock both parties into the agreement for the entire term. This means tenants can't just move out with 30 days notice, and landlords can't ask tenants to leave without cause. This structure offers more predictability, but less flexibility compared to month-to-month arrangements. For tenants, fixed-term leases offer several advantages. The most significant is stability, knowing you have a place to live for a set period without worrying about sudden rent increases or unexpected eviction. Fixed rent means you can budget more easily, and the clear terms help prevent misunderstandings with your landlord. If you value security and predictability, a fixed-term lease is often the best choice. Landlords also benefit from fixed-term leases. With a set agreement, they can count on steady rental income for the duration of the lease. This predictability makes it easier to plan for property expenses and reduces the risk of frequent tenant turnover. Additionally, the lease terms can help protect the property by clearly outlining tenant responsibilities and rules. While fixed-term leases offer stability, they also come with some drawbacks for tenants. If your circumstances change, like a job, relocation, or family emergency, you might be stuck in the lease or face penalties for breaking it early. This lack of flexibility can be challenging for people with unpredictable schedules or who may need to move on short notice. Landlords may also face challenges with fixed-term leases. If a tenant stops paying rent or damages the property, it can be difficult to remove them before the lease ends. Additionally, if the rental market changes and rents go up, landlords can't raise the rent until the lease term is over. These factors can limit a landlord's ability to respond quickly to changing circumstances. When a fixed-term lease ends, several things can happen. The tenant might move out, the lease could be renewed for another term, or it might convert to a month-to-month arrangement. The specific outcome depends on the agreement between the tenant and landlord, as well as local laws. It's important for both parties to communicate well in advance of the lease's expiration to avoid misunderstandings. Many fixed-term leases include a renewal option. This means that, as the end date approaches, the tenant and landlord can agree to extend the lease for another term, often with updated terms or rent. Renewal options provide an opportunity for both parties to reassess their needs and make adjustments if necessary. If neither party wants to sign a new fixed-term lease, the agreement may automatically convert to a month-to-month arrangement. This provides more flexibility for both sides, allowing the tenant to move out or the landlord to make changes with proper notice. However, rent and other terms may also change at this point. Some fixed-term leases include early termination clauses. These outline the conditions under which a tenant or landlord can end the lease before the term is up, such as job relocation, military service, or other emergencies. Usually, there are penalties or fees involved, so it's important to read these clauses carefully before signing. Breaking a fixed-term lease usually means the tenant is leaving before the agreed-upon end date. This can result in financial penalties, loss of security deposit, or even legal action. However, some leases allow for subletting or finding a replacement tenant, which can help reduce the tenant's liability. Always check the lease terms and local laws before making a decision. Most fixed-term leases require a security deposit. This money is held by the landlord to cover any damages or unpaid rent. At the end of the lease, if the property is in good condition and all rent is paid, the deposit is usually returned to the tenant. The exact rules can vary, so it's important to understand your rights and responsibilities regarding security deposits. One of the main benefits of a fixed-term lease is that the rent amount is typically locked in for the entire term. This means the landlord cannot raise the rent until the lease ends, providing tenants with financial stability. However, some leases may include clauses that allow for rent increases under specific circumstances, so always read your contract carefully. Fixed-term leases usually spell out who is responsible for maintenance and repairs. Typically, tenants handle minor issues like changing light bulbs, while landlords take care of major repairs. Clear terms help prevent disputes and ensure the property is well maintained throughout the lease, period. Another important aspect of fixed-term leases is how utilities and other costs are handled. The lease should specify who pays for things like water, electricity, gas, and internet. Sometimes, these costs are included in the rent. Other times, tenants pay them separately. Always clarify these details before signing. Fixed-term leases often include rules and restrictions, such as whether pets are allowed, smoking policies, or limits on the number of occupants. These rules are designed to protect the property and ensure a safe, comfortable environment for everyone. Make sure you understand and agree to all rules before signing the lease. Some fixed-term leases allow tenants to sublet the property or assign the lease to someone else. This can be helpful if you need to move before the lease ends. However, there are usually strict requirements, and the landlord's approval is often needed. Always check the lease for subletting or assignment clauses. Tenants with fixed-term leases are protected by various laws that prevent unfair eviction and ensure safe living conditions. These laws vary by location, but generally require landlords to follow specific procedures if they want to end the lease early or make major changes. Knowing your rights can help you avoid problems and protect your interests. Landlords also have legal protections under fixed-term leases. For example, they can require tenants to follow the lease terms and pay rent on time. If a tenant violates the agreement, the landlord may have the right to seek eviction or compensation. Understanding these protections helps landlords manage their properties more effectively. Negotiating a fixed-term lease involves discussing the terms with your landlord or tenant before signing. You can negotiate the rent amount, lease duration, included utilities, and other terms. It's important to get everything in writing and make sure both parties agree to the final contract. Don't be afraid to ask questions or request changes if something doesn't work for you. Before signing a fixed-term lease, always read the fine print. Look for details about rent increases, maintenance responsibilities, early termination, and other important clauses. If you're unsure about anything, ask for clarification or seek legal advice. Understanding the contract fully can save you from headaches down the road. Once you've reviewed and agreed to all terms, it's time to sign the lease. Both the tenant and landlord should sign and date the document, and each should keep a copy for their records. This signed contract is legally binding, so make sure you're comfortable with every detail before putting pen to paper. After signing the lease, the next step is moving in. It's a good idea to do a walkthrough inspection with the landlord to document the property's condition. Take photos and note any existing damage. This helps avoid disputes about the security deposit when you move out. Throughout the lease term, both tenant and landlord must follow the agreed-upon rules. Tenants should pay rent on time and take care of the property, while landlords must handle repairs and respect the tenant's privacy. Good communication can help resolve any issues that arise during the lease. Disputes can sometimes arise during a fixed-term lease. Common issues include disagreements over repairs, rent payments, or rule violations. It's best to try resolving disputes through open communication first. If that doesn't work, mediation or legal action may be necessary. Always keep records of your communications and any agreements made. If either party violates the lease terms, there can be serious consequences. For tenants, this might mean eviction or loss of the security deposit. For landlords, it could result in legal action or having to pay damages. Both sides should understand the penalties for violations and do their best to comply with the agreement. As the lease term comes to an end, both parties should review the agreement and prepare for the next steps. This might include moving out, renewing the lease, or transitioning to a month-to-month arrangement. Make sure to give proper notice and follow any move-out procedures outlined in the lease. Before returning the keys, it's common to do a move-out inspection. The landlord will check the property for any damage beyond normal wear and tear. If everything is in good condition, the security deposit is usually returned. If there are issues, the landlord may deduct repair costs from the deposit. After the move-out inspection, the landlord will return the security deposit, minus any deductions for damages or unpaid rent. The timeline for returning the deposit varies by location, but it's usually within a few weeks. If there are deductions, the landlord should provide an itemized list explaining the charges. If both parties are happy with the arrangement, they can choose to renew the fixed-term lease for another period. This is a good time to discuss any changes to the rent or terms. Renewing provides continued stability and avoids the hassle of finding a new tenant or property. Sometimes, after a fixed-term lease ends, both parties prefer to switch to a month-to-month arrangement. This offers more flexibility, allowing either side to end the agreement with proper notice. However, rent and other terms may change, so it's important to clarify the new arrangement in writing. If the lease isn't renewed and the tenant doesn't move out, the landlord may begin eviction proceedings. It's important for tenants to plan ahead and communicate with the landlord about their intentions. Leaving on good terms can help avoid legal issues and protect your rental history. Fixed-term leases can get complicated when roommates are involved. If one roommate wants to leave early, the remaining tenants may be responsible for the full rent. It's important to have a clear agreement among roommates and communicate with the landlord about any changes. If you need to move before your lease ends, subletting might be an option. This means finding someone else to take over your lease for the remainder of the term. Always get the landlord's approval and follow any procedures outlined in the lease to avoid problems. Sometimes, life circumstances require ending a lease early. If your lease has an early termination clause, follow the steps outlined there. If not, talk to your landlord and try to reach an agreement. Be prepared for possible penalties or the need to find a replacement tenant. If you're considering a fixed-term lease, here are some tips. Read the contract carefully, clarify any unclear terms, and make sure you can commit to the full lease period. Keep records of all payments and communications with your landlord, and always follow the rules to protect your deposit and rental history. For landlords, it's important to screen tenants carefully, use a clear and detailed lease agreement, and communicate openly. Respond promptly to maintenance requests, and keep records of all transactions. A good relationship with your tenant can make the lease term smoother for everyone. Both tenants and landlords can make mistakes with fixed-term leases. Common errors include not reading the contract thoroughly, failing to document property condition, or misunderstanding the rules about early termination. Avoid these pitfalls by staying informed and organized throughout the lease process. A fixed-term lease is a great choice if you want stability and predictability in your housing situation. It's ideal for people who plan to stay in one place for a while and want to avoid frequent moves or rent increases. Consider your personal circumstances before deciding if this type of lease is right for you. If a fixed-term lease doesn't fit your needs, there are alternatives. Month-to-month leases offer more flexibility, while short-term rentals or sublets can be ideal for temporary situations. Weigh the pros and cons of each option before making your decision. To sum up, a fixed-term lease is a binding agreement that provides stability and clarity for both tenants and landlords. It outlines the duration, rent, responsibilities, and rules for the rental period. While it offers many benefits, it's important to understand the terms, communicate openly, and plan ahead to avoid problems. Thanks for watching our guide to fixed-term leases. Whether you're a tenant or a landlord, understanding how these agreements work can help you make better decisions and protect your interests. Remember to read every contract carefully, communicate clearly, and seek advice if you're unsure about any part of the process. Good luck with your next rental experience.